Welcome, my friends, to the second episode of the Uncommon Sense Podcast. I'm your host, Cody Hunt. This is Andy Horner, and this is Michael Law. This is the debate and discussion show, which is supposed to reveal to everyone that you can discuss and disagree in a way that actually brings people together and doesn't tear people apart. Our show, if you're unfamiliar, which, by the way, if you haven't seen our pilot episode, go to our Facebook page or our YouTube page and watch the first episode. It'll explain all the ins and outs of the show and its 5 segments. We, however, are going to dig right in today. I talked way too much last week, and so this week I want to hear more from these guys. All right, before we get rolling, though, I want to acknowledge Michael Law, who doubles in his role as the producer. I know Andy and I couldn't do the things that he does. He is passionate about the technical side of our show, as well as providing the best possible avenue to give us the best possible content. So I want to ask you a question as we get rolling. How long did it take you to produce our pilot episode?
Yeah, for sure. First episode with a project like this takes time. There's a lot of legwork. All the overlays, I call those lower thirds. Those things take lots of time to animate in the Adobe softwares that I use. But other than that, it wasn't too bad. As you're hearing right now, the audio is significantly better. That was probably the biggest critique that I had of myself last week. Was audio was pretty unbearable at times. So hopefully you guys are hearing that that's a lot better, more improved. Overall, I'd say a couple hours for sure. All the videos that you saw, those take time. But it took about a week, I would say, just a couple hours a day here and there. So it was fun. It's a passion that I have for sure, as you alluded to. And hopefully it's something that you guys enjoy.
If you know Michael at all, you know that he is incredibly skilled in these departments. That's one of the elements of his architectural, technical, as well as creative mindset that's playing itself out. And he is making this show what we believe it can be. And we hope that you enjoy this as much as he enjoys producing it and we enjoy doing it. Now I want to move to Andy, and I want to give you an opportunity to get to know Andy a little bit. In case you didn't watch the first episode, Andy has been identified as the old man of the Uncommon Sense Podcast. That's true. Not because he's literally the oldest person,
which I am,
on the panel. Yep. It's also not because his hairline continues to recede,
which it is
unfortunate. Yeah.
But more than anything, it is revealed in his home and in his possessions, which are, how should I say this, elements of older gentlemanly antiquity. Okay.
Yep.
And I want to enlighten our audience to a particular item of yours that actually caused you a great deal of pain.
Sure. So like Cody said, I am the old man of the group. I do self-identify as that. And I recently bought the oldest old man thing, the oldest gentleman's accoutrement that I've ever bought.
I don't know what that
I want to know if Michael knows what that is.
Can you say that again? It sounded mumbled to me.
Accoutrement. It's a French word for accessory would be a good,
okay.
Good
See,
analogy.
If you say accessory, I'm with you.
But I'm not as pretentious an old man if I say accessory. Okay. So, anyways, I bought a couple months ago an accessory.
Thank you.
That I actually have with me today.
You're going to show it to us?
I absolutely. Would you like me to?
I would love to see it.
Okay. Well, I bought
a
gentleman's walking stick a couple months ago.
You see the snake head on top of that?
With a snake's head in brass, but it's actually...
It bites too.
It does bite. It's not just a walking stick. It is also the snake's head unscrews.
Can we see it?
And no, because the last time that happened, it ended poorly. There's a sword in here as well. So, as any historian knows, gentlemen used to carry walking sticks with a blade inside it. And so I bought one because they're cool.
Well, you live in the crazy, small town.
Right. It's very dangerous. So, yes,
Tell us what happened one particular time that you decided to pull out said blade from your cane.
Yes. Well, I made the mistake of, like you said, pulling the sword out because I then promptly managed to puncture myself by, trying to put the sword back in my leg instead of in the cane. So,
because those are easily
right. So I was okay. until I started walking around on it right after I did it, and the pressure up and down on my leg. I was without the cane at that point, yes. Caused me to nearly pass out. Luckily, I had family close by, and they were able to get me home, and I was safe. The funniest...
You did this where?
Yes.
Normally you would probably test this out at the privacy and safety of your own home.
Right. Well, I was not in my own house. I was actually leading my church's high school Bible study.
Wonderful.
So the biggest irony in the whole thing, Jordan does know about this. Our youth pastor does know about this. His response was, I give you Bible study one time, and this is what happens. So,
I'm surprised you weren't fired.
So am I.
Right.
So the biggest irony, of course, was that my leg stiffened up overnight, and I needed the cane to walk the next day. So stab yourself on Wednesday, need the cane to walk on Thursday.
So not only is Andy an old man, he's obviously also a terrible old man. So we've got that. That's one way that we're getting to know our panelists. I hope we provide more and more opportunities for you to get to know these guys in their hilarious eccentricities. All right, stay tuned with us. We're going to move to the main topic. We're going to be discussing President Trump and his relationship with the media. Stay tuned right here on the Uncommon Sense Podcast. All right, my friends, welcome back to the Uncommon Sense Podcast. We are moving into our main topic, our main dish, if you will. President Trump has probably the most well-documented relationship with the press of any president in modern history, not because of its positivity, but because of the outright hostility on both sides. Take a look at this clip between Trump and Peter Alexander, a journalist, a White House news correspondent.
Nearly 200 dead, 14,000 who are sick, millions, as you witnessed, who are scared right now. What do you say to Americans who are watching you right now who are scared?
I say that you're a terrible reporter. That's what I say. Go ahead.
I
think it's a very nasty question, and I think it's a very bad signal that you're putting out to the American people. The American people are looking for answers, and they're looking for hope. And you're doing sensationalism. And the same with NBC and Comcast. I don't call it Comcast. I call it Concast. Let me just for whom you work. Let me just tell you something. That's really bad reporting.
Do you really think going off on Peter, going off on a network is appropriate when the country is going through something like this?
I do, because I think Peter is. I've dealt with Peter for a long time, and I think Peter is not a good journalist when it comes to fairness.
This is just one example. And the COVID-19 crisis is only the tip of the iceberg of President Trump's relationship issues with the press. This relationship, or this level of hostility, dates all the way back before he announced his candidacy for president, really back to 2012, and before with the birther incident with President Obama. He has long since had his credibility questioned and has in turn questioned the credibility of the larger news media. So let me ask this question, and I'll pose it to you first, Andy. Okay. Is President Trump's hostility and chastising, almost mockery of the press, is it beneficial to our society as a whole, or is it damaging?
Absolutely, it's damaging. To go into more detail on that, every time we have the leader of our country, who is also the leader of the free world, every time we have him stand up and use phrases like fake news, enemy of the state, enemy of the people, corrupt, any of those terms, anytime he does that, we lose something. We are in essence at that point having our democracy attacked. All the way back to the Bill of Rights. Free and independent press is what we have strived for and what we need. And every time he does that, we damage that just a little bit more.
Can I butt in?
Sure.
I just want to if it's true, if it is fake news, if it is, what were some other ones you said?
Corrupt, fake news, so enemy of the state.
If it is enemy of the state, what's wrong with holding them accountable, holding their feet to the fire, saying, hey, this isn't correct what you're publishing. The fear that you're instilling in the American people is not is not one that's needed. It's not, because it's not true. Is there an issue with that?
I do have an issue with that because he is the only one deciding what is the enemy of the state, what is fake news and what isn't. He's offering no sources, no factual backing to anything he says. If you notice, he continually attacks anybody that prints anything negative about him. Anything that is negative is automatically fake news. No backing, no sourcing offered.
So I'll definitely give you, he's overused the fake news. I mean, you could almost put that as his 2020 campaign.
Absolutely.
But my thought process is with things related to the American people or just the country in general, not his personal things. If he were to, in your position, if he were to provide facts to calling out fake news or corruption, would you still have an issue with it?
I would be more ready to listen to him if he had the factual evidence behind it, but I would still have an issue with it because he is the government. He is representative of the government, and because of his title, it is his administration. We need an independent and free press. That's guaranteed all the way back to the Bill of Rights. It's the First Amendment: freedom of speech, freedom of press.
Yeah, well, because I agree with that. I agree you should have freedom of speech. You should have freedom of press. I take issue when people are being pumped with fear, when people are flat out being pumped false information. And I've said for a while, even kind of before President Trump took office, that, hey, this stuff, people need to be held accountable for this, either at the local level. I mean, it happens with local newspapers too. It's not like it's just the New York Times.
Right, of course.
And so who's going to do that? I agree. You can't have somebody overarching, the newspapers saying, nope, you can't say this, you can't say that. But if you're flat out purposely altering information, like for me, if I were to go to my boss and with a project, and I purposely provide information that is not true, not only now is he not aware of that, he's going to then take it to a client and give them that false information. And now they, when they're made aware of that, they come at my boss ticked, and now I get fired. That's how that happens in the real world. Why? That's my job. Okay.
Yes.
With what was it? The interviewer's name in that clip.
Oh, Mr. Alexander. Yeah.
Peter Alexander. Okay. He has a job too for that newspaper company or media outlet, whatever it is.
Absolutely.
He's got to be held accountable in some way, right?
I agree, but in your example, it would make President Trump the boss of the media, and I have trouble with that.
And I can understand that. I think the reason I don't take as much issue with it as you do is because I view it more through the lens of he's shining light on an issue versus now he might actually be trying to alter things. I'm sure he is actually. Right. But I think I view it more through a lens of if people are starting to realize and recognize that this is happening, I think I'm okay with that.
I want to butt in here because I want to add an element that I think we're starting to tease out. Is the biases or the political leanings of individual news outlets, newspaper, and television stations, do they purposefully slant facts or give incomplete pictures? And if so, is it the government's responsibility to intervene to draw out the complete truth? Or is that a slippery slope towards censorship?
I think it's absolutely a slippery slope. And it's why I think you and I both kind of tread carefully with this topic, because it's like one way or the other, you're getting towards that slippery slope. And to me, it's, yes, the media is very slanted. If you, let's say if President Trump gave a State of the Union or addressed the nation, obviously news outlets are immediately going to be covering that post the announcement. If you turn it on and listen to them simultaneously, they're entirely different stories. Absolutely,
which they always have been.
Exactly.
And that's the problem I have with President Trump, because he attacks the ones that are negative towards him. And so you always hear about in his comments on Twitter, his comments in press conferences, how CNN, New York Times, things like that, they're all slanted to the left. They're all slanted against him. They're all slanted and trying to bring him down. He never talks about how Fox is slanted towards him most of the time. Every news article, no matter what it is, has some form of a slant. You can't write something without some form of a slant.
You can't truly write neutral.
Yes. And so while there are newspapers and shows and any other type of media that are slanted, you can easily find one that is slanted the opposite way. And so it's not fair for President Trump to call out select media outlets that portray him in a negative light when he's got media outlets that are slanting him in a positive light. It's the viewer's responsibility to step up and say, okay, I know that, for example, CNN is much more liberal. I'm going to then watch CNN and Fox so that I get both sides of the issue and then come up with my own opinion. We don't need a president or a government telling us what something can or can't print. That's the start of censorship. That's that slippery slope you were talking about.
Yeah, and that's the slippery slope of going towards censorship. We can't get there. And it's on us, the American people, to make sure that we never do get there. And I think that we do that through, and this is why, this is why I don't have a problem with him. I think he should stop. I mean, I do. I think he makes himself look like an idiot a lot of the times. So
What do you mean when you say stop?
I think he should stop responding with so much emotion. I think even people in your situation.
That brings up one of the hearts of the show.
If he can, well, yeah,
It does.
if he would calmly, instead of cutting off reporters, and just say, "That's not correct. Here's why that's not correct. Please stop doing that."
See, and I disagree that it is his place to do even that. I think that if he doesn't like a question, if he doesn't like the way an interview or a press conference is going, then he can ignore it and move on.
Now, see, I agree. But if he did that, the left media would absolutely obliterate him for saying next question.
Perhaps, but it's not his place to step up and say what the media needs to. If you watch that clip again, he calls that reporter a terrible reporter, and that he works for Comcast because he won't even say Comcast. Yeah. That is wrong on multiple levels, and he accuses the reporter of sensationalism while he's using sensationalism as a tactic, going so far as to tell the reporter that he's a terrible reporter, a lazy person, Comcast versus Comcast. Those are sensationalist tactics. Even one of his favorite things is to call it fake news, but he also time and again has used the phrase enemy of the people or enemy of the state. That's sensationalism. That's what we call treason. And anytime you as the president or you as the administration step up and say a group of people is an enemy of the state, they are treasonous, that is sensationalistic, and it is wrong.
The reality of this topic is if everyone took time to do their best to put their leanings and their perspectives to the side for the sake of reporting the news to the American people, it would give everyone a chance to see a fuller picture of what's happening, which will allow anyone and everyone to really develop more holistic opinions, which I believe could bring us together instead of driving us further apart, which is what we're trying to do on this show. This was the main portion of our show. We hope you enjoyed the start of a lively debate. Stay tuned. We're going to move into our rapid fire segment right after the break here on the Uncommon Sense Podcast. Welcome back to the Uncommon Sense Podcast alongside Andy Horner and Michael Law. I am Cody Hunt. We're entering into the rapid fire section. Reminder of how that works. Each of our panelists will receive a question. It will alternate the order of which one who goes first. All right, they will each get 30 seconds to answer the question. After each of those 30 seconds, there will be a 1 minute of open dialogue and discussion. I will start with Michael for the first question of our rapid fire section. Michael, here we go. It's a fill in the blank, and we love these fill in the blanks. All right, this is it. Your favorite president in the history of this country is?
Well, I know them all, so
Doubt that.
it's Abraham Lincoln. Yeah,
Because?
Well, a personal reason. He also shares the heart condition that I have. It's called Marfan syndrome. Very tall, very lanky. And also he freed the slaves. That's kind of a big, massive deal. So
I think there's a little bit more nuance to that.
Yeah, he did just a little bit more than free just the slaves, you know.
We only had 30 seconds.
Okay, fine.
Andy.
Answer the question.
All right. I'm going to go with President Kennedy. I think for me, public speaking has always been something that I judge our presidents on, and he is certainly one of the best public speakers that we've had. And so certainly appreciate that. And then the youthful breath of fresh air that he breathed into the presidency. So
he also was a wonderful husband. Any dialogue, discussion you want to have? On top of that, you answered the question.
Any other reasons for Lincoln, or just the slaves and we're done?
He freed.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, he did a ton of stuff. I can't do that in 30 seconds.
Okay.
You could also talk about the interesting relationships, name-wise, between Kennedy and Lincoln and their administrations.
We could. There's all sorts of fun stuff between Kennedy and Lincoln. I don't know if we can go into that because we're so focused on freed the slaves. So.
All right, let's move on to question 2. Andy's going to field it first.
History buff. Come on, guys.
Here we go. Andy,
okay, question 2. Yes.
Question 2. Should capital punishment be outlawed?
Yes, no doubt. For me, it's a simple matter of it's too quick and simple for them. The perpetrators are dead at that point, and they have no responsibility beyond that. I much prefer them to stay alive and have to live with the fact that they've killed a person.
Yeah, I quite literally agree with almost all of that. I also don't like, I don't like playing God of deciding who lives and who doesn't.
That's a good thought.
And yeah, if somebody murdered, a family of 4, I don't think that they should be able to move on and be killed just like that. I think they should have to sit in prison and think about it for the rest of their life.
Yeah, it also drags out the process by the time you get through all the appeals, the stays of execution, the way in which they have to be executed, X number of drug compound this, and it's so complicated and so costly that we end up saving money by not executing them. Yeah. So I certainly believe
is it outlawed in some states?
It is outlawed in some states, and
actually, the state of Colorado just outlawed the death penalty.
I wasn't aware of that. I didn't catch that.
They all smoke weed, so
it's true.
That they do.
That was an incredibly lively discussion and debate.
It's interesting when we agree on it.
There's a little too much solidarity through the first episode and a half. Hopefully we'll change that in days to come. The third question will be very, very interesting. I'm really interested to hear their answers, and I hope it brings about a discussion of some names that maybe we don't talk about a whole lot in our political system. Michael will get it first. Here's my question. What woman, Michael, in today's American political society is best equipped to become the president of the United States?
I think Condoleezza Rice.
Interesting choice.
Yeah, she was the first African-American female to lead the State Department under the President Bush administration. And then as a Republican, she actually came out and was critical of the statements that Trump had made during his campaign about women. And so I respect that a lot. That's her speaking up for what she believes in. And she was also on the national security team under President Bush. So that's a pretty good resume. And I think if she would put her name in the hat, she could gain a lot of traction.
High-level executive branch experience as well as time in the private sector and involved in organizations like the NCAA. It makes her an incredibly qualified candidate, whether we believe in her political perspective or not. Andy, could you give us a candidate of your own?
Absolutely. Certainly Condoleezza is an excellent choice. I looked at some different lists, and I came up with Gina Raimondo. She's the governor of Rhode Island. I picked her because she focuses more on fiscal responsibility. She is a Democrat, and so that's an interesting choice. She has gotten some some criticism from Democrats, especially Democrats on the left, because she doesn't lean as far left as they do. But I like fiscal responsibility. I think anybody in either party should have that. And I think she has some of those: focus on jobs, balance budgets, cut where possible, things like that I look for in any leader. So I would definitely consider her for president. So,
you're not a Pocahontas fan?
I believe you mean Senator Warren. Let's be polite. And I certainly prefer her to other leftist candidates. But no, I'm not the biggest fan of hers.
3-letter acronyms?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I'm not a 3-letter acronym person
Gotcha.
in female political candidates. So, yes.
Governor of Rhode Island, that comes with a whole bunch of electoral college weight and power,
Yes,
right?
that pretty much guarantees a hard-fought battle in the electoral college. So
Easy path to 270 right there. And a lot of
Absolutely.
executive branch experience
absolutely,
there.
I didn't say she was the perfect candidate.
Yeah, she's
but,
probably got her state and National Guard involved in some real
hey,
skirmishes there.
you'd be surprised. I'm sure
Right.
the state of Rhode Island definitely has some skirmishes that we're not aware of.
But a moderate and one of fiscal responsibility, I could get on board
Yes.
with that. I like both of these candidates. This is going to be something that's going to happen. We are going to have a female president sooner than later. Do your homework. All right, study the candidate
Absolutely.
and their qualifications and their position, and then support somebody. All right, let's move forward as a society. Stay tuned on the Uncommon Sense podcast. We'll move to our viewer Q&A right after the break. All right, my friends, welcome back to the Uncommon Sense podcast. We're going to move now into our audience Q&A time. A reminder, this is not a live show, and so that there are 2 ways that you can send your questions to us to be answered on a future show. The first is to send us your questions via one of our social media platforms, direct message us on there, and we will respond quickly and get those into our show. Also, you can send an email to uncommonsensepc@gmail.com. Send your questions there. We will also answer those and put them into a future show. Today's questions were asked, all 3 of them were asked by our friend Ryan from Wabash, and I will give Michael the first question. All right, Michael, the first question is this. With both of you being committed Christians and active in your local church, what do you think is the worst worship song that churches have sung during your lifetime?
Oh, wow. I think, and I'm gonna base this solely off of it being overplayed.
Okay.
Oceans. It when that came out, every church everywhere played that song, and they played it like every week. It was all over the radio. Don't get me started on K-Love.
Mm-hmm.
Oceans.
Okay, I didn't ask that question, though. I asked what is the worst, not what is the most overplayed to the point where it drove you crazy. What is the worst?
Oh, man.
Please say Days of Elijah.
No. What's it called? I actually don't know this. What's it called where there's like men's part, women's
You
part?
are holy.
Like, yeah, and then
Yeah.
what's that called? Is that like when there's like a chorus or
Around.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't.
I don't like those.
You don't like that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Those weird me out because when you're not singing, when it's not your part, you're just standing there like, what do I do?
Okay.
And then when it is your part, all the girls are watching all the guys sing, and guys aren't necessarily very good at singing, and now you feel embarrassed at church when you're supposed to be worshiping God. I just think it's very distracting.
Guys aren't good at singing. Okay. Okay. I'm gonna.
You asked for a more in-depth answer.
Okay.
That's what you get.
I am going to disagree with you. I am going to pick Christine DeMarco's "It Is Well."
Hold on.
Yes.
Bethel.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
It is.
It's your opinion.
It is. It is my opinion, and I'll tell you why too. As we've said before, and we'll say again, I am an old man, and so I do love hymns, and I love classic hymns. And so the medley updated version of It Is Well drives me crazy because it is a beautifully poignant song that has a wonderful story behind it.
Here comes the history.
Yes, it's a beautiful story, and I'm not going to tell you because look it up. It's beautiful.
Also, Horatio Spafford was a heretic, so let's study that a little bit too.
No.
He dabbled in universalism, but that's a different story.
That's a different story.
Okay.
The song itself is beautiful, and it doesn't need updated. Why we think we need to update it, I don't know. It's beautiful as is.
Andy's just a hater of the Bethel Church movement.
That's what this
Clearly, that's what I was going
That's
for.
what this is
Clearly.
All right, let's move on. Andy,
Okay.
you're going to feel the second one.
All right.
All right, this is also from Ryan. He says, if I invited you to a record spinning party, what records would you want played?
Okay. I am a classic rock guy myself. I'm also, again, the oldest one here. So basically, anything from some time ago I'm going to love. And so if I had to pick my favorite, it's actually not going to be my favorite band, but it's one of my favorite records. It would be Fleetwood Mac's Rumors.
Oh.
I love Fleetwood Mac. I love any of the. I mean, take your pick on any song on that.
Are you a
I
fan
would
of
love
any,
to listen to Stevie.
any band with a
for
city
hours.
as its name?
Let's see.
Boston.
What's I'm okay with that. I'm okay with making that generalization.
Okay.
So
There's actually people that I know that are like, I can't stand any band that has a city for a name, and I'm like, those are some of the best bands.
Give me
and
another one besides Boston.
Boston, there is.
Kansas is a state,
Kansas
but
is
it kind of gets
technically a state.
gets
I do
lumped in
enjoy
there.
Kansas.
America is a band, but that's an entire country.
That's an entire country. That's true.
What are some of the other ones?
Asia. So now we're up to the continent level.
Heat of the moment, great song.
Heat of the moment, great song. So
What was the question that I'm answering?
yeah, we've
Records at a party.
If he invited you
Yes.
to a record spinning party, what would you want played?
I would take the soundtrack, which I'm pretty sure is actually on vinyl, of Guardians of the Galaxy.
Wonderful.
It is on vinyl.
Is it on vinyl?
It is on vinyl, and that is an excellent choice.
It's such a good
That is an
soundtrack.
excellent choice. You'll get no argument from me.
Hard to argue with either one of those answers. Let's move on now to our final question. All right.
Okay.
If you, this is going to you
This is me
first.
first?
Yeah. If you had to eat at one fast food restaurant for the rest of your life, what would it be? Now, this is an important caveat. This is not necessarily your favorite fast food restaurant. This is the place you could eat over
thinking
and over and
logistically
over
here.
again for the rest of your life.
I'm going to go with Chick-fil-A.
Why?
Couple reasons. One, I do enjoy it.
Fair.
I also think they have pretty good options as far, you can get salads and you can get chicken. That's about it.
It's
Now that I
literally
think
manna
about
from
that.
heaven.
Yeah. So I guess there's not much variety at Chick-fil-A, but I like it and I could eat it a lot. Have you ever had their chicken minis for breakfast?
Yes.
Yeah.
I have.
That is, it does not get better than that for breakfast. I don't care what you say about McDonald's breakfast.
It does get better than that for breakfast, but I don't like breakfast for fast food because I like biscuits and gravy. So, but as
Chick-fil-A
far
is my answer.
I will grant you the fries at Chick-fil-A because they're glorious. But for me, I'm a Burger King guy. I'm a cattle farmer, so
You're not going to get pushback from him on this.
well,
that's for
no.
sure.
We've been to Burger King more times than I care to count. But
I
no.
have to wait 40 minutes a pop at Burger King over and over and over and over again. And there's never anybody in line.
Are you bitter?
I could be the only person in the drive-thru at Burger King with McDonald's packed to the road across the street or wherever it is. I'm thinking Wabash, for example. It's packed out all the way. Burger King has one car in the drive-thru, and nobody will wait on me in the first 15 minutes of my time there.
He texted a friend of ours.
He's not
of
bitter
ours.
at all.
We have a group chat. He texted us one time. He was literally in the Burger King drive-thru for like 20 minutes, and no one had even asked what he wanted.
Without service!
Okay, that's not what we're talking about here, though.
Ridiculousness!
We're talking about food. If I'm going to have to be stuck somewhere, I want it to be where I can get a hamburger.
You know how quick I get through the Chick-fil-A line? 3 minutes.
You know what Chick-fil-A doesn't have? Whoppers.
Exactly. They have chicken.
And so does Burger
And
King.
chicken minis. And lemonade. Hand-squeezed lemonade.
Who cares who did what to the lemonade?
And customer service in the first 45
And
minutes.
they love Jesus.
Oh, for pity's sake.
It's literally manna
Hard.
from heaven.
Okay.
For the first time in the history of the Uncommon Sense podcast, we are awarding a winner of a segment, and it's based entirely off that answer itself. Michael wins the segment. Stay tuned.
you.
We're going to
Thank
come
you.
back. Andy will have a fireside chat right here on the Uncommon Sense podcast.
Welcome back, everybody, to Uncommon Sense. I wanted to take a moment and talk to you about something that's near and dear to my heart. As many of you know, the goal of our show is to put some civility back in our society. We've noticed that too often divisiveness is the default rather than working together, coming together so that we can talk and discuss. One of the things that I think we can do to help contribute to that civility is to slow down, take time, and think before we post. Too often I've seen memes on Facebook where it's one or two sentences over a picture, and people post that and think that these complex global issues can be reduced down to these one or two sentences with a picture. I would urge everyone, please resist that temptation to post that. Take time. Ask yourself, is what I've posted going to help or is it going to hurt? Have I fact-checked it? Have I gone to a website that I trust to run these facts through? Does what I've posted make sense? Have I talked to somebody? Have I gone to the local library? Do they have a book on the issue? Is there some way to double check and make sure that before I hit post, before I retweet, before I whatever, I've done my homework on it? If we're all willing to do that, then we can put some civility back in our national discourse. And if we can do that, then we get to a place that is so much more able to handle discussion and discourse. So please take time this week and do that. In the midst of this health crisis, this week I would urge you to do an act of kindness. We've talked about how I'm the old man of the group, and I certainly am. So I want to challenge you this week. Go old school. Write someone a note. I encourage you to do that, one, because it gets you physically writing a note, and two, it enables somebody to get that note that maybe they're having a tough time of it. Maybe they're stuck where they can't get out. Maybe they are suffering from anxiety, and this note is really going to help them. Take that time this week. Do something that is going to encourage, write that note, and just please stick together. Thank you for tuning in for Uncommon Sense. We hope that you'll join us in the weeks that follow. Please be sure to find us on Facebook, YouTube. We have our Gmail account. Reach out to us. Let us know what we're doing, how we can do better, questions you might have. We'd love to hear from you. And as always, tune in Mondays at 8 p.m. That's when all of our Facebook videos go live. Thank you and have a wonderful week.